What up, people? Welcome to the Doing Everything Different podcast. I'm your host, and today we have a very special episode. As of businesses and brands, as you start to kind of think about storytelling and building online and thinking about the power of social media and storytelling and how important social media is, sometimes we only see the end result and the final picture and the final product and the final campaign. But there's a lot of stuff that goes into the back of it and how to set it up and strategy and kind of thinking about the whole process of it. So today I'm very excited about our guest. Today we have Mekale Jackson, who is the senior director or senior global social media strategy for Under Armour. Very excited to kind of dive into his story and how he kind of thinks about social media, how he got into this space, and to give us some gems. So Mekale, welcome to the show.
Yo, appreciate it, Devin.
Super excited to have you and have this conversation. And so I kind of want to start from, how did you even get into this space? Have you always been into kind of social media storytelling? What does that look like for you?
It's actually like a long story. I started off in this time where social media wasn't even a thing. I mean, like, we got to go back 2007, like even back before that. So I started off in just regular graphic design. This is in college in like 2004. I picked up Photoshop. One of my frat bros was making our party flyers, and I was like, yo, his name was AJ. Like, yo, AJ, like, how are you making these party flyers? And this is like before like YouTube. This is before all of this stuff. It's like Photoshop was like this new thing. I'm kind of aging myself there, but
I remember though.
Yeah. So, and he had said like, oh, I'm making these things in Photoshop. So I asked him like, yo, can you install whatever it is you got on your computer, put it on my computer. So he did that. And I started to self-teach myself how to design like party flyers, started to teach myself how to design all those things that we're doing for our fraternity. And I ended up doing it for like the other fraternities and sororities. Ended up getting a job right after graduating at a Division III school in New York, Merchant Marine Academy, in the media relations department. And just utilizing like just my graphic design skills. Never wanted to be in design at all. I just kind of just got into it because I wanted to influence sport, and if me as a fan, just able to create something that I want to see as a fan, I was going to do that. So ended up getting a job at the Merchant Marine Academy, a Division III school, and then ultimately landed at St. John's, which kind of catapulted my career there. I was there for 11 years, but during that period, that's when social media started to develop, and that's when I translated my skills from design to designing from just publications to the digital space. And that's really like where the journey began, and social became a thing, and everything just kind of gravitated towards that.
It's crazy going back to, because I remember those days, right? I remember the MySpace days where you could design, the kind of the CSS, and you can design your MySpace page. And then I remember Facebook came, and first Facebook was just for colleges. And then it was like, then it started to kind of go into the masses. And then I remember Instagram came, and it was like all of these, it was very new to back in the time with all that stuff. Cause I mean, what did we have? In 2004, we had AIM, that was like our social media.
Yeah.
And I remember Photoshop and all that stuff and design. So you kind of just stumbled into it. Were you into art like growing up as a kid?
Not directly. I was into like creative storytelling. So, I found myself like doodling pictures. Even if before I even found out about Photoshop, I would be messing around with Microsoft Paint, making like organizational flyers and things like that. So I've always had that creative background, but like once I saw Photoshop and saw like this guy make this party flyer, I was just fascinated by it. And, just spending hours upon hours, like within the program, really just figuring things out and taking designs from artists that I kind of admired, and really just self-teaching myself, like, how to do a certain design, how to do a certain graphic, and seeing the different trends, following all the different pages, really just kind of just grinding it out. And for me, like being able to visually communicate, just that energy, like it captivated me. But it was only for sport. I mean, like I don't like design for like a jewelry company or a corner store, a grocery store. I mean, I have little interest in that, but if it's for sport, that passion with creative storytelling, it really strikes a chord with me.
So you kind of merge those two worlds together. That's cool.
Yeah.
So what did you do at St. John's?
Yeah. So when I got to St. John's, I was originally there as a publications coordinator. So I was housed within like the communications department, athletic communications, also known as like sports information. And I designed media guides. This was this was 2007. And designing media guides, like if you don't know what that is, it's the big book of stats that the media teams will get when they go to a game. They go to the media room and they're just looking at all the player stats. But back then, colleges used that as the primary recruiting tool, believe it or not. I mean, like now these days, it's all about the NIL deal. It's about, just like the creative graphic. It's about, all this creative rights of storytelling. But back then, the media guide was what coaches and administration used to recruit. So like within these media guides, like I would design like all the photos, history of the school, lay out all the stats, and like that was the big thing. So for a few years, I was in charge of laying out the publications for the athletic department. Eventually, my role, I was there 11 years. So eventually I ended up leading creative, digital marketing, social media, licensing, aspects of marketing, and being the lead designer just throughout this 11-year journey. And that's designing everything from marketing outdoor advertisements, designing everything from digital, social. I led all the creative, just pretty much the creative director for the athletic department, and with the big focus in on basketball. So that's ultimately, like everything in my career stemmed from this time at St. John's. I got a lot of love from my heart for St. John's, even though I'm from Detroit, went to Michigan, but St. John's is that school that I still follow each and every step of the way. But yeah, I mean, my entire athletics journey, it can be rooted down to my experience at St. John's.
Yeah, that was like the foundation for you. So so the stuff that you learned in school, did it translate into kind of what you did on the job, or was that more self-taught? Because I know that you said you picked up Photoshop, so you didn't go to school for it. You were just like, hey, I'm gonna teach myself that. And I think that's an important lesson for people to understand, like, especially coming up, like there's these resources and tools. And like you said, this was before YouTube. So, teaching yourself back in the day without being able to search something on YouTube and find out how to do it was a whole different thing than it is now. Yeah. So what did that look like from translating from what you learned in school to how that applied to your actual career?
Yeah. So no, my actual collegiate, I got a degree in English literature. It has nothing to do with design at all whatsoever directly. So everything that I got from school was just about like just the overall experience of college and like the resources that a school like Michigan could offer you. Because I mean, like, yeah, like, my direct degree doesn't have anything to do with the creative arts. I mean, I could, like find some ways where it does, but like, I think like overall, like a school like Michigan, like it gives you the opportunity to tap into like just the different cultural resources around you, whether it's the fraternity organizations and just really seeing that like you can have a life in this profession just because of all the organizations that has a wide reach. The athletic department, it's a tier 1, division 1 athletic program. So like, even if I could use my skills and just get into the athletic department and intern, like, like that has a direct influence. But I didn't start to see the skills used from an English degree happen until I started to venture more into social media and marketing. And, and that's where the art of, just storytelling happens outside of visual storytelling, but being able to really like, verbally tell the story on paper. I like to read. Didn't like to read when I was in college. I like to read now. So it's like just being able to kind of like tie all those things together. I think indirectly that degree from Michigan, truly helped me out. But the tactical skill of designing, like, no, had nothing to do with it. It's just personal preference, personal journey. Just it's that hustle mentality. It's the Detroit in me that really wants to just figure it out.
Right. I love that, man. I think that that's very important of being able to take the initiative for what you want. I think a lot of the people that we talk to on these episodes and stuff have that same kind of mentality, right? Of like, okay, this, maybe if I did go to school, this didn't fully translate into what I'm doing, but there's little bits and pieces. And I feel like everything that we kind of go through in our whole experience is preparing us for what we're asking for and where we're going next. And so that's dope to hear how you kind of intertwine those two. So, okay, so St. John's, 11 years. What happened after St. John's?
So it's not so much about what happened after St. John's. It's about what happened during the period I was at St. John's. So while I was at St. John's, I realized that I wanted to grow my career. I wanted to grow, but like my wife was, she's doing very well in the world of fashion. We're in New York, and I couldn't just get up and leave. To grow in the world of college athletics, like you got to bounce around from state to state, school to school. That's how you see like the fastest growth within college athletics. But that wasn't an option for me because we weren't leaving New York. She was doing well in fashion, so it was like I was kind of just there in New York. But one avenue that I did go down, I started to do freelance design, freelance graphic design, and like fortunately, it's in an industry where that's accepted. So I started to do some freelance design for a few different schools in and around the country. And it started to design for Michigan, Northwestern, Manhattan College, Seton Hall, just a bunch of different universities around the country. And then, I was doing that for a few years, all while balancing full-time jobs. So like it takes a lot of discipline to excel at your full-time job. And from at 9 p.m., that's when I start freelancing. So I'm grinding from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m., just straight freelance work. And this went on for years. And then eventually, like once I got into a proper rhythm of taking on all this client work for all these different schools, it was like 10 of them at the time. And then that's when I got NBA as a client, and I started to do a lot of design work for the NBA social channels, and that's NBA, G League, WNBA. Ended up doing something for the Phoenix Suns, Cleveland Cavaliers, and it was really just a grind. And so doing the freelance for the NBA, those teams, and Bleacher Report came on board, so I started doing work for them, and a bunch of other sport entities just in and around that time. And like that's what really opened my eyes to how just sports is all connected, and just creating for the different channels. It helped me as a full-timer because I was able to take a lot of those experiences and a lot of those meetings that I had as a freelancer and apply it to what I was doing full-time, and we really had a lot of success within the industry at St. John's because of all these learnings that I was able to take from all these different places and apply it to St. John's. And anytime I wanted to like do something new and innovative, I was able to do it at St. John's, and then almost use it as a portfolio piece. Like, oh man, if I wanted to design something in Times Square, we kind of did that at St. John's, and now it's in my portfolio. So man, I designed something in Times Square, or I designed a subway ad, a subway campaign, or I designed like a bus ad, and everything is right there. So like being able to showcase that, because I'm the one that was designing it, I was the one that was making it. To now to be able to do it and do the work for all these bigger brands, I was able to like really leverage it and just be a more of a well-rounded professional. So that's what happened during St. John's, and then afterwards, the full-time journey is interesting as well.
So that's crazy impressive that you say, and I kind of want to go back and unpack this. So you're working at St. John's, you start picking up freelance work, you start getting these other universities and colleges, and you get the MBA and Bleacher Report and all these companies. How did you do this, right? Because I think that's the big question of people of like, okay, especially freelancers. I know a lot of freelancers listen to this show and they're like, how do I pick up clients? How do I build relationships? How did you build those relationships to get those clients when you were freelancers from the colleges and then the MBA?
Yeah. Well, I think a large part of it, has to do with just right place, right time. Just being blessed. God has a lot to do with it. You know, dumb luck. Just being prepared. So, I mean, like because like everything I'm about to say next it's because of, you know, just my faith and my belief in God that, you know, all these doors kind of opened up. But on the natural side, you know, for me, it's like, I remember the first client, it was just being at the right place at the right time. I hated networking in college. I hated the term networking. I thought it was like, yo, who networks? Like the way like they try to set it up in college, and oh, you got to network. Like I couldn't stand it. But now, years into it, like I've been networking this entire time, not realizing I was networking. So the very first client, I ended up going to, like, it was an industry happy hour at a bar in New York. And, you know, I didn't want to go there, but, you know, I ended up going anyway. So I got outside my comfort zone, went to this happy hour, and a guy had came up to me. You know, he was director of communications at a smaller Division I school in the area. And, you know, he came up, said, hey, this was before I started freelancing. And he says, hey, you're Mekale. I'm familiar with your work. You know, really good stuff. I was making media guides. All right. And then he said, hey, would you ever consider like freelancing? And I'm like, well, sure. You know, I'm not going to turn down a project. And one thing kind of led to another. I mean, we kind of stayed in touch, and, you know, he was the very first client, and I started doing media guides for that school. And like, he was my client, just the one client, just for a while. And the big thing with that, it's about just being consistent. You know, like I took the one client, and it's not about trying to be something I'm not. It wasn't about trying to, you know, like, you know, I had career goals. There's things that I wanted to do, you know, from a career point of view. There's things that I wanted to do personally. I think I was saving for a wedding then. So like, this client came right on time. I'm like, great, I'm just going to grind this one out. And really, you know, it was, you know, just you know, just being, everything started from just being faithful to that one client. So, you know, whether it's I'm delivering projects on time, I'm communicative, easy to work with, you know, making sure that I was, you know, like providing true value for that client, because like they could go to any other agency and they'll pay twice as much more. But I'm like, you know what? I can charge, you know, maybe a step under, because I'm providing so much value, and it's great for me as well. So like, once that first one came, and then like once you get into a proper rhythm, so because like you can't hope for 5 different clients if your processes aren't set up to handle the one. So like, you know, for 3 years I was just working this one. So I was getting everything in order, from like making sure, like, you know, like my processes were straight, like making sure that I had, you know, a fast enough computer to be able to handle everything, making sure my invoicing systems was all set up and ready to go, making sure that I was streamlined on Dropbox, and being able to access files wherever I went. So I had to make sure all the nooks and crannies were ready to go. So for 3 years, just worked that one client. But to directly answer your question, like how I got other clients, other universities, I mean, you got to hear a lot of no's. You know, you want to know how many no's I've heard? I would just cold call, email folks. The beauty about college athletics, the staff director is on the website. I mean, you just go to the website, and I'm emailing everybody. I probably emailed every Division I school in America, and because I work in college athletics, I knew who to reach out to. It's like, all right, well, I'm going to reach out to sports information department, director of marketing. I know exactly what it is that you all need, because I'm in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
I know what we need. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, this is what I was just straight up with them. This is what I offer. And I tried many different ways to communicate what it is that I was offering. I tried to go like to approach it as if I was an agency, and I would hear certain type of feedback. And then I would approach it as if I was just a regular freelancer, and just as an individual. That worked best for me. You know, it's not going to work best for everyone, but for me, it worked best. And I just cold call emails, and, you know, some people would reach back, some people wouldn't. A lot of no's, um, and then eventually, like the big ones hit. But it was just a lot of
That's
cold
dope.
calls and networking. Early on, it was just a lot of cold calls. I mean, it changed later on.
Man, I believe in that so much, in terms of like what you said about adding value, being able to understand your systems and your processes and everything like that. And I think you have to be multi-dimensional,
Yeah.
in terms of how you approach things, right? So you had the creative side of things down. Then you're like, okay, cool. This freelance thing, this is just coming, and and I see this a lot with people that I talk about in everybody's journey. These things just kind of randomly happen, right? Like you weren't going out to try to freelance. You got outside of your comfort zone, put yourself in an uncomfortable position, and an opportunity came. And that's usually when that happens, is when you put yourself out there. So not only did you do that, you're like, okay, cool. Here's an opportunity right here. You were able to see the opportunity. And then you're like, okay, I need to organize all this stuff, and to be able to organize it and structure it all out. And I think that that's so important for people to understand, is like being willing to look at all of these different things and put these pieces together. It's not just one thing that you have to build out. It's these multiple skill sets that you have to kind of develop. And that's just dope. Yeah, that story is dope. And it resonates with my journey as well. Like it's the same kind of thing. It's putting yourself out there, having faith, the right place at the right time, controlling the things that you can control, the stuff that you can't control, giving it up to God and letting him work it out and to do all the details. And that's tight, man.
Yeah, I mean it's a grind as well. There's a lot of people who don't necessarily want to put in the work. I mean, like they see everything that comes afterwards, but it's it's having the discipline to like, yeah, I was managing a full-time job and being really good at it. Like, I mean, and that's me humbly saying that, like, like we were really good. Like, the people that we had on staff and the talent that was developed during that time was like, we didn't miss a beat. But it's about what happens when everybody else is asleep. If every day I'm sitting back on the computer, 9 p.m. to 2 a.m., just straight designing, it's like, well, is everyone willing to sit down and grind it out like that and balance a full-time job? I mean, well no. I mean, it's easier said than done, but it takes discipline, and whatever it is that you choose to do, like it takes discipline. And for me, like those periods before I left St. John's to go into the full-time profession, full-time league sports world, it's like it takes a certain level of discipline and sacrifice. And then it changes everything when you go from designing from colleges to now you're in the ecosystem of some place like the NBA, who have these higher levels of expectations and speed and precision, and everything. Your entire process has to be fine-tuned, and you got to be ready for the influx of work that comes your way. Because like if you're trying to balance full-time work and deliver on all of the projects that like the NBA is really asking for, like you got to make sure that you are buttoned up and ready to go.
For sure. Now, where do you think that discipline developed from you? Was that something that you always had? Was it something that you had to develop over time? Where did it come from?
I feel like I've always had it. I mean, like I can always point to like just my upbringing. I'm one of 7 kids, and just having discipline to like, hey, look, I'm focused in on just doing this one thing. Like, yo, hey, I'm gonna figure it out. And even goes, if I had to point to the first time just in my adult years is joining a fraternity. I mean, just having to be disciplined to even get through an entire process. For me, like like that was really, if you're gonna be focused in on something, I think like that my journey into the land of alpha like really like just helped me just organize just who I was as an adult and come out my comfort zone, but also be disciplined enough to, hey, I got to do the schoolwork. I have to do the steps required to join a fraternity. So like that was the beginning of it. But then after that, it was a pure desire for me to to win. I mean, I was in the industry where I love sport and I love creating for sport. So I was doing this, like it's something that I thoroughly enjoyed. So that's why I always believed in doing something that I enjoy. Because if I was designing for Kroger or Stop and Shop, whatever grocery stores, like I have no passion for that. Like I would turn down projects, like, nah, I have no interest in it. Because if I'm going to spend time doing it, like I want it to feel like I'm having fun with it and not just doing it for a check.
So it's easier to be disciplined with something that you like.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
I gotta like it. That's just who I am.
Yeah, no, that's big. So you brought up the fraternity a lot. Has that helped you in your career? I know you said that it helped with the building discipline. Has that helped you with the networking, or what is that? What is it done in your in your career trajectory?
Um,
Or has it been more relationships? Has it been more like brotherhood? Like what does that look like for you?
well, I mean, it's all about relationships and networking, and then any time that I don't know if you're in a fraternity or not. Are you in a fraternity?
Nah.
All right. So like I would hear even joining and say, oh, it's all about the network and it's all about X, Y, and Z. Again, it's like when you're joining as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, like you don't really think about all of that. But like once I got on the professional side, and I realized that being a part of a fraternal organization is beneficial, especially for people who look like us, because usually at the top of these organizations, if you're a black man, there's a high percentage, there's a high probability that you belong to one of the NPHC, whether it's Alpha, Kappa, Q, Sigma, whatever it is. So I found that no matter what doors I walked through, no matter who I saw that looked like me, like there's that you could relate to something, like as soon as you find out like, oh, he's a Kappa, all right, great, there's that connection point. So I just think from networking POV, it's always like one of the things that you could kind of point back to. And look, I mean, I'm still close to my line brothers today. I mean, we crossed 20 years ago this April, so it's I mean, it's a relationship thing, and it's been key just to my adult journey, not just professional journey.
Yeah, a lot of people I meet in positions of power were in the D9, like a lot.
Yeah.
Mostly like you said, mostly everybody. And so it's dope because I didn't ever go into college. I started my business straight out of high school. So it was a whole new world for me. So when, I saw that, I was like, oh, this is dope. This is something that it's a huge network and relationship building.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you started doing the freelance, you started doing you were doing the full-time and balancing the freelance.
Yeah.
Did you then move into freelance full-time, or what was that next next kind of move?
Yeah, no. So I never moved into freelance full time. There was I could have. I mean, I'm no doubtedly could have done it full time, but again, like there were career goals that I had. I didn't want to do the big agency thing. I didn't have a strong desire to just do that full time, but I did have a desire because you have to understand, like the reasons I even got into freelancing was for me to gain more sports experience. Because I couldn't leave New York, and I was already at a Division I school, and there's not many big time Division I schools in New York. St. John's was the biggest in the area. I mean, you have to go to like Rutgers to get to a football school, and that was still like an hour away. So for me, I wanted to gain enough experience to get full-time experience, like full-time league experience somewhere. So I ended up, after 11 years, I got a job at Major League Soccer, like senior manager of social media. And so that was the next move. So now I'm at MLS. Soccer is, I understood it. I mean, it wasn't like my top two sports or anything like that. So I was going into something new, something fresh. And I mean, I love the place. I mean, it was it was a new experience, but it was a culture shock. Culture shock just from just the professional side of how like MLS is more like corporate driven. It's more in line with any of the larger companies today in terms of like how it's structured, how things are being communicated, versus a collegiate environment. Now, I'm talking like something as small as, and I'm almost embarrassed to even say these things, but like putting a meeting on Outlook, like adding a meeting to someone's calendar. We didn't do that in the collegiate space, but you get to MLS and it's like, oh, we'll just add some time to the calendar. That was new to me. So now here I am, 11 years removed from college, and I'm figuring out how to add a meeting to the calendar because like that's not culturally, that's not what we did at St. John's. So but my time at MLS, I knew sport, I knew creative, I knew the art of culture storytelling just within sport, and so I thrived in that. But during that time, like all of the mechanics of the back end of social media, from the analytics to the the different KPIs to like all the tools to like everything on the back end that people don't necessarily see. I spent that time just learning how a league operates, because I saw everything on the front end, but the back end is where like I did a lot of the learning at MLS. So I was there for about 3 years through the pandemic, and had a lot of fun times with MLS.
Love that. So more things that you're adding to your arsenal of just like learning and stuff like that as you start going into these different spaces that you're developing these skills.
Yep. So yeah, because by the time I was at MLS, so now it's like I'm talking to just a completely different audience.
Mm-hmm.
So not necessarily the college student or alumni or just a college fan, but now it's talking to a broader global audience. It's talking to people who enjoy soccer, and people who wants to call it, people who call it football. So now you're talking to these completely different audiences. And there was a lot of it that was unfamiliar to me, so like I did a lot of time learning and falling in love with soccer, and it was a completely different experience, but it was step two in my sports journey, because now I had the team experience in college, and now the league experience at MLS, and then like the next step was to get the player marketing experience.
Did you do that intentionally? Or was it just an opportunity that came up and then now looking back, you're like, oh, okay, it makes sense of the move that I made?
Well, I was always trying to get into professional sports. And when the opportunity at MLS came up, it was intentional for me to get the league experience. And I'm a believer, all things happen for a reason. And I'm glad it was at MLS, because, that's, for me in that transition period, it was best that I go to a place like MLS, which if you take all the league sports and put them in a big pot, they're the baby of the group. So like when you compare them to the NBA, NFL, MLB, they're still like, and NHL, MLS is the startup. So you go into an environment like MLS where it was more startup when you compare it to the other leagues. So like there's still some bit of fluidity. Like there's still a lot of things you can learn, that you can change, you can adjust, and it's a ramp up. So me going to MLS, yes, professionally for me, it was intentional for me to get to that level, because I needed that experience. Because I had the league experience as a creator, as a contractor, as a freelancer, but I wanted that full-time experience. And so so that part, it was very intentional. I can look at it now and say, okay, hey, great, that was, I had team experience, I want league experience, and then when I went to Rock, that was the player marketing experience, and then Under Armour was the brand experience. So like now I can look at it and be like, oh man, this is a big circle, it's a big wheel.
Right. So then from the MLS, you went where?
I went to Rock Nation.
Oh, Rock Nation. Okay.
Yeah. So there was a time when I was at MLS, I wanted something different. This was at the tail end of 2020. It was right after like the George Floyd movement, and it was it was a big thing in MLS, and I wanted to go to the Rock Nation opportunity came up, and the deciding factor for me to go over there, which I wanted to take on a challenge of, number one, having the team, like being a director of a team. Because at MLS I was like number two, and I wanted to take on the challenge of like, hey, I want to be able to see, can my skills translate? Can I lead the team myself? Where everyone points that, okay, hey, look, that's Mekale's team. Like, I wanted to take on that challenge, but then two, I wanted to be at a place culturally that that embraced and stood for everything that I enjoyed about just culture. Like be at a place where I could be authentically myself, go to the office wearing a hat and a hoodie, listening to hip hop, rap, and Rock Nation was that place, because like they're at the pulse of what culture is, and that was the main driver for me to go over there. But also I had a chance to see the player marketing side. So now it's like, if I'm leading teams that creates creative and digital content for social channels, not only for our owned and operated channels, but also for the athletes and the artists. And so like that experience all together, it was eye-opening, and I really enjoyed that side of the business, because it's like you're dealing directly with the athlete, you're dealing directly with the artist, you're dealing directly with the agent, and you are like really, trying to help drive their business on their behalf, and not necessarily on the side of a league storytelling or a brand storytelling. But also like being able to just to meet a lot of great people, a lot of dope creatives, a lot of people who are just making like really interesting content. And I mean, it's the networking opportunities there as well. I mean, that was some of like one of the most enjoyable experiences I had, just as a professional.
Did you ever have? So you've made these moves in spaces that you didn't have experience with, right? And did you ever have doubt or second guess yourself of like, damn, can I manage a team? Can I have this? Can I, operate in this space? Was there ever any like, second thoughts about it? Or was it always just kind of, you had the confidence of like, hey, I'm gonna figure it out and just, I'm gonna learn as I go?
Well, both. I mean, because I'm always of the belief of like, hey, I'll figure it out. I can, that's just who I am. It's like, hey, I will always just figure it out. I don't need to have all the answers straight up, but I know that I can just figure it out. But I have like every move that I've made, no matter what I've been in, I've always had that sense of doubt. It's like, man, like, hey, I'm going into this thing that I don't have all the answers. When I went to MLS, well, all right. So even when I went to St. John's, I'm like, well, I don't necessarily have that Division I experience. I'm going for Division III. And it's like, man, like this is the Big East Conference, like they're so high up on my radar. I'm like, man, the Big East Conference, can I create? Because like even going into that interview, the guy who was interviewing me, my boss, Mark Frado, is like, I remember it like it was yesterday. I go into his office for the interview, and he lays out Duke's media guy, Texas media guy, and says like, hey, can you do that? And I'm like, I've never opened up like InDesign or Photoshop before. And I'm like, yes, I can do it. Knowing that, hey, I'll just figure it out. So like there was this sense of doubt, but like I knew that I could figure it out. Going into MLS, it was like, well, I was excited to get to the league or get to a league, and being able to see kind of have that sort of impact. But I didn't know soccer like that. Like I knew it at the collegiate space, but I didn't know it professionally. Like I had to do research. So I questioned, like, man, like could I figure it out? But I knew that, all right, well, what do I know best? Well, I know design, I know creative, I know the art of sport, I know storytelling, I know what's hot. So it's like you can mix all those things together. I mean, and it's sports culture. So it's like you could I realized, look, they hired me for a reason. They didn't hire me to be this big soccer head. Everyone is a soccer head there. They hired me to, for a particular reason, for a particular skill set, for a particular view that I bring to sport. And that's what makes sports content best, is when you have these diversity in thought and experiences, because you're talking to this wide audience. So yeah, I had doubt there. Even when I go to Rock Nation, it's like, yeah, I had some doubt there, because now I'm like, all right, well, this is a different culture. I've never been on the agency side. Can I lead the team? Can I be exactly who it is that they hired me to be, bringing all my experience? So like, yeah, there's those senses of uncertainty. And I think, like the moment of clarity for me is like when I came over to Under Armour, the main reason I took that job was because, I have seen like some levels of success at every place that I've been. Like there's this track record, and this, again, it's a humble thing, but you can look and see there's a track record of some success. And I'm like, all right, well, I want to personally see how my track record of success can translate over to a global brand. And that was the first time I wanted to just take on that challenge. It was myself. It's like, okay, I know what I can do. Let me see if I can do it at this level, and see and see how it looks. I just want to see how it looks, how it all comes together, and I've been able to kind of see that at a different level.
So, I mean, senior director of global social media strategy, that's big. I mean, that's a big role. So tell me what you do now. Like, what is your role, your kind of day to day, and how you see this from a global brand standpoint?
Yeah. So I lead the global channels, social strategy and content for our social handles. So that's Under Armour, UA basketball, football, UA running, Under Armour FC, women's, Project Rock, Curry Brand, so like it's all those social channels. And so I lead the team, and we develop the creative content for those channels, develop what the strategy is, and that's at the global level. And then there's all the regional handles. A lot of the regional pages are ran by, just the different countries in Europe, Asia, Latin America, Canada. But we communicate our global strategy over to the regional teams so they can build content. But right now it's a team of about 7 who I manage, and a host of other freelancers and creators, agencies that we kind of have across the country. And so really it's just bringing that creative storytelling to life, whether it's showcasing athlete moments, product moments. We're trying to sell shoes and products, so I think that's a big difference between being at a brand versus being on the player marketing side or the league side or collegiate side. Like, hey, look, we're in a business to make money, but just being able to bring all of my experiences together, from creative, from me networking with other creatives around the country, to cultural storytelling, to mixing in product, to all these different things, and to just bringing at this level. It has been like just a full cyclical moment for me.
That's wild. That's dope, because you have all these social handles. I didn't even realize you guys had that many. Plus, you have it on different platforms too, right? So you have like TikTok and Instagram and like all of that stuff. So I know that that's a lot of kind of thinking through, how do we show up on these different platforms? How do we do this? We understand kind of social media marketing, so we understand what goes involved in it. But from a global standpoint and all of those handles, that has to be an interesting process to kind of look through.
Yeah. I mean, it is an interesting process, but like I also know that just from my just overall experiences. I mean, it's if I compare this to like any other place I've been, like, yeah, you're populating for those channels, but at the same time, it's like, well, are you populating as much as you are for when I was at MLS? MLS is like, well, you're communicating all the time, 10 different posts a day for Instagram, 20 different posts for Twitter, another 10 for TikTok. So it's like there's so many channels because you're trying to communicate for a league. And a team is different. A team, St. John's, like you're only communicating for whatever's happening within that particular day. And it could be, a post every other day. Or if it's a game time, like maybe you're posting, a bit more because you're in game mode. Player marketing side, like, all right, well, it's less frequent, but now you're building it just for the particular athlete or artist. At a global brand, like, yeah, it's, especially like in a highly matrix organization like this, it's like, yeah, you're building it out for not just global channels. So you want to make sure that the content resonates in each particular region. But also like just understanding where your area of focus is, what are the stats behind it, what's the key product, like what exactly, what's the story we're trying to push, where are those areas that, where we could take a few chances and really get creative with the storytelling. So I think every channel, every tick in the sports wheel, it has its pros and cons, but I mean it's all, there's one common denominator. Like, we're creating for sport. I mean, that's ultimately like what it is that we're doing. Just, you're creating for sport. It's no, I don't think there's a big science to it, but maybe I'm just saying that because, of my past experiences. I can look at it through a different lens, and knowing that, like, hey, we're creating for sport. We're just having fun with it.
So transitioning from doing the work, right? Like designing, doing the flyers, doing all that stuff from the start, to now running strategy for a global brand and having a team from a management standpoint, right? So like having a team, what have you learned most as a leader in order to get the most effective work from the team, to be able to create that culture, to be able to do that? What are some things that you've learned in a leadership role that you can share with people that can be helpful, that you saw that works?
Yeah. So I'm a believer in, I'm not going to pretend to be somebody I'm not. I'm a believer in doubling down on your strengths, recognizing like what your weaknesses are, but like I would double down on my strengths, and I could hire toward my weaknesses. So like, for me, like that's been key. And that's the thing. I would never pretend to be somebody I'm not. And if I know that I'm really good at the creative side of things, creative storytelling, just understanding, like I have that eye for creative and can talk the talk with the different creatives who are around the industry, because I've been on that side of freelancing and agency. You know, I've sat on that side. Like, you're not gonna try to game me for stuff that, like, yo, I know what this is. Like I know what this should be. So being able to talk the talk and identify like who are the proper people to really sit in a place and create, I think like that, from that lens, it has helped me be a better leader, because I lead from a creative first approach. Creative first approach to social is like, hey, look, you know, we can be creatively innovative. We can tell those creative stories. I can connect with the different people who are around the industry to create content, engaging content, stuff that, you know, we just think is dope and that could sell stuff. And being able to lead from that approach, and all while just communicating like what this creative vision and strategy is, while resourcing the team with, you know, all these different levels of just, you know, just creative resources, because I think like that's the one unlock for me is, you know, there could be a lot of you know, people who are writing strategy, writing briefs and things like that, but it's the magic is in like, well, who's creating the work, like who's the ones that's creating and who's showing up, and you know, that's a strength of mine. So as a leader, as long as I'm equipping the team with you know, just the proper mechanics on like how to do the work, and I bring those to the table, so like, you know, my vision could be really just kind of like put out there. That's what I've learned as a leader, is to like, look, I'm not going to try to be somebody I'm not. I'm not going to you know, think that, oh, I should be doing X, Y, and Z. Like, well, no, that maybe that's how they did it. I'm doing it like this because this is where my strengths lie. But also like being able to identify people's strengths and being able to communicate, you know, to like, you know, like I'm a creative thinker. Somebody else may be a more analytical thinker. So just being able to recognize that and communicate both ways, communicate what the strategy is, all while, you know, communicating like risk taking and creative evolution and just going out there and, you know, to do it. So it's, yeah, you know, for me, it's just, you know, communicating and just creative. You know, as a leader for me, it's, you know, it's that communication boils down to everything.
I agree. So what is something, so social media, like a lot of times we see the final product, we see the final campaign, we see the final post, we see the final copy. What is something that people would be surprised about on the back end of like really what goes into strategy, whether it's like, you know, we have 20 pieces of content and then we boil it down to one, or like we plan out for 6 months ahead, or like what are some things that from behind the scenes that you can share of just like what are that people will be shocked about of what goes into kind of strategy and being able to articulate a story on social media?
Oh, well, like I can't speak for everyone, because I know like every team operates differently, every company operates differently. But one of the things that I know that, you know, like may be more shocking to some people is that, no, we actually we do the work. Like we don't rely on big agencies to actually go out there and do the work. Like, no, like I'm a hands on. Like if I'm hands on with anything, it's on the creative side of what we're producing for social, and not just. I mean, of course, like there's the big brand campaigns that, you know, like that we plug into, but for those things that are a social first shoot, and we're operating, it's like, no, we're getting down to the nitty gritty, and we're sourcing the creatives ourselves. We're finding the freelancers we want to work with. We are, you know, we're just you know, into the weeds of, you know, just developing what this creative is going to look and feel like. And, you know, it's a, it's about trying to find that magic between a highly produced commercial spot versus, you know, like, hey, look, we need something quick turn, something that's relatable, touchable, and raw. But like you can't think too deep into it. You can't over process it. You can't over process it. Tongue twister. But it's like we're just, you know, like we really get into the weeds of like creating different pieces of social content, and it's, yeah, a lot of people may use, you know, a bunch of different agencies, and like, yeah, like we have agency support, but at the same time, it's, there's a lot of different other like just dope creatives out there who may not know, who to reach out to make great creative content. And, and I like to see myself as that extension, being someone who, like if you're within the industry and like if you know me just from just from the freelance world, it's like, well, no, like, hey, I want to work with anyone who I know who does dope work. If you do great work, great. You know what? Let's work together. Like,
Right.
And I think like that for me, like that's the big key is like I'm one of the creatives, and I just so happen to like lead a social team for a global brand. So it's like, hey, look, let's do work together, because the creatives are the ones who are driving culture, and
100%.
that's what I like to kind of just tap into and just network with.
Man, your journey is dope. Kind of just thinking about just as you walked me along the journey, and with these episodes that we do, and I tell people this all the time, sometimes it's hard to see the picture when you're in the frame. So we look at our journeys and it's just like, oh yeah, it's just kind of gets that's just part of my stuff. But seeing it from the outside perspective, you said so much stuff that's so important from the sense of just being at the right place at the right time, having faith, being able to put in the work, being able to have the discipline, to be able to add value, thinking about building out these multiple skill sets to be able to develop to where you are today. Going back and looking at your 19-year-old self that just discovered Photoshop and, started designing, what would you go back and tell him of just along this journey that can help maybe make it smoother, or just like, what is just a piece of advice that you would give him?
I think I would give that 19-year-old just assurance that no matter how many no's you hear, it's going to be okay. Like the right opportunity will make sense when it comes, because even along the journey, like there were so many no's that I've heard, either from interviews to freelance assignments. And I mean, it takes your emotions on this roller coaster. Roles that I thought would be perfect for me, roles that I thought was a shoe in, but like it don't end up that way. And like I find myself like, man, like just questioning, should I be designing? Like when I wasn't hearing from freelance people, freelance clients, after months on end, I question like, should I even be freelancing? And like you get on this emotional roller coaster to like, like trying to like break into like the full-time league sports world and hearing so many no's from across the industry. Like, man, am I supposed to be at St. John's forever? Or am I, is there a world, like, is there something else? So like, I would just tell that 19-year-old self, like, hey, no matter how many no's you hear, it all works out in the end.
So I agree with you.
Yeah,
well, man, this has been great. I think I got a lot from this conversation in terms of just kind of trusting the process and being open with the new opportunities that come, and being able to, again, just take all these pieces to build out what you're trying to build in the future. And some of these things that you go through are going to be very impactful and important as you kind of move on later in your career and develop it. So how can people find you and follow your journey?
Instagram at Mekale, Mekale. Go to Twitter, Mekale Jackson. On my website, mekalejackson.com.
Love it. Well, I appreciate your time, man. This was a really dope story. I'm excited to continue to watch your growth and evolve and continue to build on this relationship. So I really appreciate you.
Appreciate it, Devin.
All right, peace.